You create your own reality. Welcome to Living Seth.
Think about the heaviest thing you have ever felt, the deepest heartbreak, the most terrifying nightmare that woke you up in a cold sweat, or the highest peak of joy where you felt like you owned the entire world. We go through this current life convincing ourselves that we are just starting from scratch, that we are this single fragile point of awareness trapped inside one body, walking down a single straight line from birth to death. But if you tap into what Seth was actually talking about, that straight line is an illusion designed to keep you from losing your mind under the sheer weight of who you really are. You are not a visitor who arrived here yesterday. You are a focal point of a vast, multi-dimensional consciousness that has already explored the absolute edges of reality. Every fear you try to run from, every hidden desire you feel guilty for even thinking about, and every bizarre dream that feels a little too familiar is not just random noise your brain made up to pass the time. It is an echo. You have already walked through the fire, and you have already sat on the throne. You have lived through the absolute worst-case scenarios your mind can conjure, and you have tasted the wildest versions of success you currently believe are impossible. Time does not work like a conveyor belt carrying you from the past into the future. Everything exists simultaneously in a massive, open framework of consciousness, where all possible experiences are occurring right now. That feeling of sudden dread when you enter a room, or that strange wave of comfort when you meet a stranger, is not an accident. It is you brushing shoulders with another version of yourself that is living out that exact frequency at this very moment. When you start to realize that your soul is not some tiny spark waiting to be saved, but an enormous creator experiencing every conceivable angle of existence, the fear of missing out completely vanishes. You have not missed out on anything. You have been the beggar, the ruler, the builder, and the destroyer. You have felt the crushing weight of utter ruin, and you have felt the overwhelming peace of complete fulfillment. All of it is already woven into your fabric. When you look at your current life, you are not trying to build something out of nothing. You are simply focusing your attention on one specific station out of millions of simultaneous broadcasts. Once you truly accept that every fear and every dream has already been lived, you stop walking through this world like a victim of circumstance, and you start recognizing the sheer magnitude of what is sitting behind your own eyes. Every single time you stood at a crossroads in your life and had to make a decision, you thought you left the other choice behind in the dust. You thought that picking door number 1 meant door number 2 simply dissolved into thin air. But consciousness never wastes an ounce of creative energy. The Seth material makes it plain and simple. Every road not taken was actually taken by a probable version of you that branched off the very second you made up your mind. You think you are sitting here wondering what your life would look like if you had taken that chance, moved to that city, stayed in that relationship, or walked away sooner. The truth is, that other version of you is out there living that exact reality, right now in a parallel probability system. You have already tasted the outcome of every gamble you were too terrified to make. You have already crashed and burned in the ventures that kept you awake at night with anxiety, and you have already risen to the absolute top in the fields you walked away from. When you get a sudden, unexplainable gut feeling or a sudden flash of panic out of nowhere, that is not an irrational glitch in your nervous system. That is the barrier between probable realities thinning out for a split second. You are feeling the bleed through of a probable self, navigating a crisis or celebrating a massive breakthrough. We spend so much energy mourning what could have been, completely blind to the fact that the totality of who you are is already experiencing all of it. You are never missing out on any timeline because your greater self encompasses every single branch on the tree. When you realize that the worst possible disaster you ever worried about has already played out in a probable framework and the universe did not end, the paralyzing grip of fear loses all its strength. You stop hesitating out of fear of making the wrong move. Because there are no wrong moves in an infinite reality of learning. You are simply choosing which specific storyline you want to give your physical attention to today. You are walking through an endless library of your own creation, and every single page has already been written by your own awareness. People get caught up in the concept of reincarnation, picturing a neat little line where you die, wait in a waiting room, and come back as someone else hundreds of years later. But Seth completely tore that idea apart. Past lives and future lives are not behind you or ahead of you. They are existing concurrently right now in the vast simultaneous present. Every historical era you have ever felt strangely drawn to, every ancient skill you picked up with zero effort, and every irrational terror of fire, heights, or deep water that has followed you since childhood is not a mystery. It is a live broadcast from another corner of your multidimensional self. You have worn every mask the human condition has to offer. You have been the tyrant who abused power, and you have been the oppressed soul fighting for a single breath of freedom. You have accumulated immense wealth that corrupted your spirit, and you have endured crushing poverty that stripped away every illusion of the material world. You have already lived out your darkest impulses and your most saintly virtues. That is why judging other people is ultimately an act of complete ignorance. When you look at someone who is struggling, failing, or acting out of deep darkness, you are literally looking at a state of being that you have already lived or are currently living in another framework. You do not need to seek enlightenment like it is a distant prize hidden at the end of a long marathon. You already carry the wisdom of hundreds of simultaneous existences encoded into the very cells of your physical vessel. The purpose of this current life is not to start at zero and climb some imaginary spiritual ladder. The purpose is to bring that multidimensional awareness directly into the physical reality you are standing in right now, grounding that ancient wisdom into this specific time, this specific place, and this specific body without being crushed by the weight of old patterns. Once the truth of your multidimensional nature truly clicks, the entire game changes completely. You stop walking through your day feeling like a helpless leaf blown around by the winds of fate, bad luck, or circumstance. You realize that you are not a passive spectator watching a movie. You are the projector, the screen, and the story all at once. Seth always hammered home one fundamental truth above everything else. The point of power is in the present moment. It does not matter what you experienced in a probable timeline. It does not matter what happened in a simultaneous past life. And it does not matter how deep your current fears run. Right here in this exact breath, you hold the power to select which reality you're going to anchor into the physical world. Your beliefs, your expectations, and your emotional focus are the tuning dials that determine which broadcast you pull out of infinity. When you stop obsessing over your worst-case scenarios, you cut off the emotional fuel that ties you to those heavy frequencies. When you focus on your deepest ambitions with absolute clarity, you are not wishing on a star. You are simply aligning yourself with a reality that already exists and is waiting for you to step into it. You have already survived the worst things that could ever happen to a human soul, and you have already achieved the highest peaks of fulfillment across the vast expanse of consciousness. You have nothing left to fear, nothing left to prove, and nowhere you need to rush to. You are here to experience this specific chapter of your infinite existence with complete presence, authenticity, and authority. Stand up straight. Let go of the exhaustion of trying to control everything through force, and start operating from the quiet confidence of someone who has already seen it all, lived it all, and conquered it all. The entire universe of experience is inside you, and this moment is yours to command.
Physical reality is not something that happens to us. It is a materialization of our innermost thoughts. Welcome to Living Seth.